Hello and welcome back to my channel. So basically the entire world has changed since I last uploaded a video. I haven't uploaded a video since late February, and yeah, the world is kind of very different now. So I guess I'll kind of start there and then I'll go ahead and talk about the build a little bit. So the first thing that I did want to say just before we get too far in the video is that I'm not going to share any spoilers about Parasite the movie. However, there's kind of an inherent spoiler in the build. Like the house has a spoiler. So if you haven't seen it yet and you want to and you don't like spoilers, I would kind of recommend that maybe you watch this later just because again, I'm not going to release any spoilers like in my words, I guess, but there is an inherent spoiler in the format of the video and I don't want to ruin it for you if you don't like spoilers. So disclaimer there. There we go. So the second thing that I wanted to say is that, like I said, I haven't posted since the whole pandemic happened, and honestly, part of it was just because I have been feeling kind of down, like the rest of the world, I guess. And so basically, for myself, what happened was I was in university. It was my last year at school, and they canceled all in-person classes, of course, in March. And so I came back home to live at my parents' house, and it kind of wasn't the most fun thing in the world. And on top of that, graduating college into a pandemic is not the most it's not the most inviting job market to be in. And so for a while I was kind of not feeling too great about it. And the kind of embarrassing thing is that I've had this build done for like 3 months now. Like I literally did this build in like late March and I just didn't have it in me, I guess, to actually put the video together and like do the voiceover and stuff. And it was just like the thought of doing that was just like literally too much for me. And the silly thing is that, this build, like the actual build and the research and everything that went into it, took me hours, like days. I worked on this for a very long time, like exorbitant amount of time. Whereas like filming the video and putting it together will take me a couple hours maybe, but I couldn't do it. And so I guess the moral of the story is that I'm, I felt up to it and I felt a little bit better about the world, I guess. And so, yeah, I wanted to finally post this video. Also, to be honest, I logged on to my YouTube account, I don't know, maybe like a week ago or something. And I saw that there have been, within the past couple weeks, a couple people left just like very nice, like genuinely nice comments on some of my old videos. And it was just, it motivated me. And I don't want to sound like I need positive reinforcement or positive motivation to do anything, but also sometimes I do. It does help out a little bit to kind of be like, to have someone just be like, hey, I like what you did. And then I'm like, okay, I'll do it more. Thanks. That makes me feel better. So yeah, basically, and I, with all that, I don't want to make it sound like, moving back home with my parents and all that was like, poor me, I'm so sad, because there are so many people in the world right now because of the pandemic and everything else that are in horrific circumstances. And yeah, so I don't mean to make it sound like that at all, because yeah, you get what I'm saying. I don't feel like I have to explain it any further. I was just kind of explaining why I haven't posted anything for like 6 months. I guess, yeah, actually 6 months now. So anyway, that being said, I thought that something that could be kind of fun in this video, because like I was saying, I wasn't feeling so great for a while and I was just kind of feeling down. And so I would like to kind of try and do this video and some others to, try to make your day or something, like just make people happy and enjoy the video and enjoy the build and stuff. So one thing that I thought would be kind of fun is if you wanted to share in the comments, and I'll share too, any kind of hobbies that you've gained with the new lifestyle, I guess. Anything fun or, things that you never thought you would do before and now you can, I guess. So I was going to share some of my hobbies over the past few months that I've been doing, and some of the disastrous circumstances that have come out of it. So first, I have been oil painting. I haven't done it in a while. Basically, myself personally, I tend to get really into something for like a month, and then I find something else and I don't touch that thing for another 6 months. So basically, when I first got home, I started oil painting because I have been painting with acrylic for a while now, about a year, I think. And I just hadn't gotten into oil painting because it is kind of expensive, and like, just the idea of I had just spent all this money buying acrylic paints, and now I was supposed to spend all this money buying more paint. Like, it just didn't really make sense. But my dad his garage is basically like a wondrous place for all things craft and fun, because he's retired, and so he does a bunch of art and stuff like that full time now, and so basically he has everything you could ever want in the garage, including oil paints. And so I was able to try out oil paints at, they were just there available to me, so that was pretty fun. I wouldn't say I have become an expert, of course. I'm a very new painter. I follow a lot of tutorials, and sometimes they don't turn out very well, but that's okay. I had one oil paint where, if you don't know a lot about oil paintings, basically they take a very long time to dry, like so long. And so you have to be really careful about the paint that you put on the page or the canvas, because it very quickly becomes like this just nightmare disaster situation where you have so much paint and you don't know what to do with it, and all of a sudden everything's like gray. And I did that. I was trying to make a sunset, and I was following someone's like tutorial kind of thing, and it very quickly became a nightmare disaster full of paint, and I still have it, but it looks really bad. So yeah, that was pretty fun. And then the next hobby that I came up with that had a genuinely disastrous circumstance was I followed the trend of everyone else, and I tried to make sourdough. And I like to bake in the first place. I definitely have, it's a hobby. I've been doing it since I was a little kid, like probably like 7 years old or something. And I had never made sourdough before. I didn't know much about it, and I saw a bunch of people talking about it online and like Reddit and stuff, and so I wanted to try it. So I did all this research, I did all this stuff, and it was a whole thing to get unbleached flour, because apparently you can't use bleached flour, and so it was like this whole situation because the grocery stores and whatnot. So eventually we got unbleached flour, and I was doing this whole sourdough starter thing for like a week. And if you don't know much about it, basically you have to keep like feeding the sourdough, I guess. And what that means is you take out like half of the starter, and then you add flour and water and like mix it up together, and then let it sit for like a day, and then you do it again. And it's supposed to make the yeast grow so you can make the bread, And because this is what I do, I guess, I got super into it, and I was like doing all this research and stuff, and then I did the sourdough starter for like a week. And then I just completely forgot about it, and it was just sitting on the dining room table. And so basically, you're not supposed to put a lid on sourdough starters, I guess, because, it's creating gas, and so it could explode. And so I basically had just put like a little like saran wrap kind of thing on the top of it. And so it was sitting there for honestly probably a few weeks, and I hadn't touched it at all. And this was around the same time as Mother's Day and my graduation also, which was in late May. And basically, for Mother's Day, I had bought my mom like some sunflowers, just like from the grocery store. And they were on the table in a vase. And one of my sisters had actually sent me through the mail a like bouquet of flowers for graduation. And they were also on the table. And you know how like sometimes if you have flowers for too long, they start to get that just like that scent, and it just kind of, I don't even know how to describe it, but if you've smelt it before, you know what I'm talking about. And it just has that like unpleasant, just like odor. Okay. And so it had been maybe a week since Mother's Day and my graduation and stuff. And it just had that, the dining room just had that scent. And so my family and my parents, we thought it was the flowers, right? And so the ones that I had gotten for Mother's Day were older, so we threw those away. And we waited a couple days, and it still kind of just smelled. And so we were like, I guess it must be the ones from my graduation, the one that my sister gave me. So we threw those out, gave it a couple more days, and it just still smelled. Like there was just like odor in the entire dining room. And eventually, my dad figured out that it was the sourdough starter, and it honestly smelled so bad. Like, I cannot even properly describe the odor in the house. It was so, so, so bad. And because I think it was covered and we weren't quite sure where it was coming from, it was like, at first it was just kind of this genuine smell around the dining room, but once it was moved, it was just so bad. And my dad shouldn't have done this because this was a bad idea. He basically tried to scrape. So at first we wanted to keep the jar that it was in because it was a nice jar. And so he tried to scrape like the starter into the sink and wash it down the sink. And boy, was that a mistake, because it basically, and then he turned the garbage disposal on. So it just like aerated the whole smell across like the entire house. And then we ended up throwing the jar out anyway because it was so bad that it wasn't even worth it to keep. And so, yeah, we had to leave all the doors open and the windows and everything with the fans on in the house for like 2 days before it was like okay to habitate that room again. And yeah, so that was awful, and I don't know if I will be doing any more starter little things for sourdough anymore because that was a disaster. Totally acknowledge that if I had just done it properly, we wouldn't have had that situation, but also that was what I did, and it is what it is. So that was my sourdough situation. I would highly recommend, if you try the whole sourdough thing, don't do what I did. So the next thing that I did, hobby-wise, was I tried to make bath bombs, which was quite fun because basically, after I graduated, I was like, you know what, you deserve it. And I bought myself like a little thing from Lush, it's like a bath company, and they make a bunch of bath bombs and cool stuff. And I was like, you deserve it. You graduated, treat yourself, and so I ordered like, I don't know, like 5 bath bombs or something, and it was like $7 million because it's really expensive. And so I was like, I don't know if I want to do this again because, it seems nice, but then you take a bath and you sit in the bath for, I don't know, 20 minutes, and then it all just goes down the drain. And you're like, I just paid $5 for this. So I wanted to try to make my own bath bombs, which is quite easy and quite cheap, actually. Basically, it's just like the main components are like citric acid, which isn't necessarily a staple in most people's kitchen, but it's quite cheap. You can get it for a couple bucks. And baking soda and cornstarch, I think it is. And then some kind of oil. And I got real into bath bombs. I've made probably dozens of them. And I got like colors for it and like scents and stuff. And it was very fun. However, I quickly realized that I guess where I live is very humid. And so, the bath bombs start to react once they get hit with water because they're bath bombs, And so they started to react from the humidity in the air. So they got like weird looking and they didn't work so well. And it kind of ruined it for me. So I still do it, but also it kind of just sucks because they don't actually look the way that I want because it's so humid here. And honestly, I totally could just get a dehumidifier, but also I don't really want to spend $300 to get a humidifier. So yeah. And then now my new hobby is I am apparently like a carpenter or something, and I have been trying to refurbish some old furniture that we have at my house because my parents have some old furniture. And my plan is to, get my own apartment soon. And I don't want to spend $7,000 on furniture, but I also don't want to get, like, folding chairs. So I've been, sanding down the paint on the furniture and, like, refinishing it and stuff. And I'm about, I think, halfway done with this cool bookshelf, and I want it to look like mid-century and stuff. And it's been pretty good. It's a fun hobby. Would highly recommend it. However, you need a lot of tools, so it can be kind of difficult if your dad doesn't have a wonderland of tools and craft things like mine does. But yeah, those are now that I've spent almost all of the time just talking about my hobbies, those are the hobbies that I have gathered during this whole situation. Highly encourage you to post any or list any that you have during the past, I don't know, what's it been, 4 months now or something, because a lot of people are not doing too well with the whole boredom thing, and you get what I'm saying. So I would personally love to hear what you have been doing to keep yourself busy and sane, and I'm sure other people would as well. So go ahead and put that in the comments if you'd like. I'd be very happy to hear it. And now that I've spent the majority of this talking about hobbies, I guess I'll actually talk about the build now. So as the title says, this is a recreation of the house from Parasite, which I think it's actually kind of an old movie now. I think it's been out for a couple years, but I just hadn't seen it. And it came on Hulu recently, and so that was when I saw it. And I think my boyfriend actually suggested to me that I should do a recreation of that build. And so, I did my normal thing where I take a bunch of pictures and stuff and tried to recreate the house. And the nice thing about this build is that a lot of the time, builds and houses and stuff from movies and TV shows make zero sense, like literally zero sense. However, because the storyline of Parasite is so kind of wrapped up in the house, the director, and I read about this, actually intentionally made the house make so much sense and be like a real house because it was part of the plot line. And so just looking at the movie and taking all these screenshots and doing some research online, it's like very easy to actually figure out what the floor plan of this house is, which is very nice for me personally. It made my life a whole lot easier. And yeah, so the only thing that is a little bit weird about this house is that some of the rooms, like, following the floor plan and following what everything looks like and everything, there's a few spots in the house where you're like, there's clearly more stuff in that hallway or more stuff in that room or that side of the house that's not included in in what we see. And so basically I kind of just had to make that up. And I didn't include it in the video because it was already a long video. And I figured nobody wants to watch a 30-minute long video while I recreate every single corner of the house from Parasite. And so basically I chose to make one little area an office because we don't see an office anywhere in the show, and that makes sense. You would imagine a house this nice would have a quite nice office. And then the other thing that I added in was a theater room, because the living room in the house doesn't have a television, and I mean, maybe the family just doesn't watch television, but I would assume the majority of people do like to watch television sometimes. And so I did add like a little theater room in with a nice big TV theater projection thing. And then the other thing that I added in was a sauna, because they do mention a sauna at some point in the show. You don't see it, you don't go in there as the audience, but they do talk about a sauna. And then the last thing that I did add was a room or like a little apartment for the housekeeper, because if you look at like context clues and stuff, she lives there, and they never show her quarters or whatever. So I built a little like apartment thing for the housekeeper. And you'll see I didn't include it in the footage because, again, I didn't want this to be 17 million years long. But it is in the basement. You'll see it in the screenshots, I think. And then I did make it pretty plain just because if you were providing housing for someone, you'd probably do that anyway. So yeah, we are now in the screenshots. I should probably, rein it in because this is already a long video. But thank you for watching. I hope if you liked this video, you tune into any of the other videos that I have on my channel. I'll have more information about like downloading this in the description box and whatnot. But yeah, I hope to see you next time, and I hope you have a great day.